Do you have any thoughts about their plans for the building, about renovating the area?
Yes, sir. I want to see it come back, whatever it takes to bring it back, put some more life in this building. And I think it would do the community a whole lot of good, sure thing. I mean, it might bring outside people in here to do some work, some business. Yeah, I don't think it should be left like this. It's just too good. You know, and I look around the town when I go around, all these empty buildings, you could build some of this thing, put all them people in this building to produce and make money. Yep. And it's a good structure. It's stout. Sure is. You can put anything in here. Yep. I hate to see it like this. Kind of hurting. Mm-hmm.
Back in 1926, Sears wanted to open a distribution center in Memphis.
They come scout around, do it very, very quietly. The logical place would be downtown, but there's really not a large enough parcel of land for them to build what they envision. And they look into the Crosstown neighborhood.
So in 1927, 2,000 men worked 24 hours a day, only stopping from midnight on Saturday to midnight on Sunday. The building was completed and operational in 180 days. That's almost unheard of.
In 1927, when that building was first opened, they opened stores, as you know, like that all across the country. But it was later that Bob Goldsmith told me that his father, and Goldsmith had the major downtown retail store, his father said, "How can these people open a store out of the boondocks like that at Crosstown? I can't believe it. But if they're that good, I'll take the trolley out there and I'll buy some stock in that company."
Now, when the building opened on Saturday, August 27th, 1927, they had 47,000 people. Sears Crosstown employed 1,000 employees on its first day of operation. The original building was more than 650,000 square feet. The building included the retail store, the catalog distribution plant for like 7 states. They had a hospital in the building for employees.
Sears at that time was a major catalog store. And to be able to have a distribution center here meant if you were living in Arkansas or Louisiana or Alabama, you took the Sears wish book and you filled out the form and you mailed it in, you were going to get your products that much quicker. I mean, it's a major economic development for the city.
My first day in this building, just before going to the first grade, my mother brought me down here from the Gregg School area on a streetcar, and we bought blue jeans. And what I remember about that day, I'll never forget the smells in the building. They had a candy shop, peanuts and pecans.
This Sears building was one of the most important buildings in the city of Memphis because this was a self-contained community.
This place here at night is probably the most phenomenal view you'll ever have in your life. On the 10th floor, when I'd go up to make exchanges, I'd look out the window and then you'll see nothing but lights on this side of the building, lights on that side of the building. It was a phenomenal place to work, phenomenal place to be around.
The environment was so interesting in working there. Remember, when I first came here, Sears was probably the largest single employer in the city. We were the FedEx of Memphis at that time.
The people that worked here were just good, down-to-earth people. They really were.
I'd never seen a fire truck. And when I first started on this road, I'd run from one end of this building to the other just to see it and I'd laugh. But I'd never been anywhere except in the fields. And a lot of people that worked here were the same way.
You pick up the telephone and you want to order anything, you would order it through our Division 200 desk. You would have your order ready within 2 hours. And you could order a pair of pants. These pants may be dress pants, and they may be a 38 waist and a 37 inseam. If you put on there that you wanted a 38 by 32, they would actually cut the pants, put a cuff on it, press it, and put it in a bag and send it downstairs, and you could have it within 2 hours. That's just an amazing operation.
But when I started here at Sears, it was still segregated. Blacks had the break rooms, different bathrooms and all that. It was a little tense, but I never had a problem with anybody. They were some most cordial people. Well, there's one or two that wasn't as cordial as the rest of them, you know. But things changed. We got along well, just like a big family. And we started using the same break rooms, the same bathroom. Anything that came through, I had a hand in it. Run elevators, unloaded freight. Mr. Tom Skinner came back to Memphis, who was my assistant manager when I worked down here for a while. And he promoted me to manager 176. Told me that I had problems down there, go down there and straighten it out. Sure did. And I told the people when I come down here, I said, now, you know I know what's going on because I come through here. And a lot of you taught me what to do. And I know what can be done. I know how it's done. Matter of fact, this department was the worst in the country out of 13 retail. Catalog auto plants and receiving. Sure was. And we went to work. And believe it or not, I picked up the plaque the other day, #1 in receiving, 1986.
When I started here, of course, I was just young, and the payroll area was all women except for the bosses. They were men. The women would always rally around you when you were sick, in the hospital, when you had babies, treating you like a member of the family, because actually you spent more time with these people than you did at home.
This is where I met my wife. Right here at this cash register. I used to go with girls where I was from, and every time I went with one, she was always kin to me. My mother said, she's kin to you. So I had to leave Tipper County to find a woman, so I came to Sears and I just ordered out of the catalog.
He had the prettiest blue eyes when he came through that cashier's line, and I just, oh, my heart just, I just fell in love.
Then at the end, let me kiss you.
Oh my God.
All right.
Okay. Oh my word.
A lot of things happened that was really funny. Up on the 8th floor, I remember of a morning, the sun would be coming up from the east. It was shining directly in a window of a house over on Parkway. And every morning, you could see in the bedroom, and this guy would come over, and you could guess the rest. But we had to work, and we didn't have time to look out the window much, but that we did.
We had a gun repair shop in the building. They would take the guns up when they repaired one. They'd have to shoot them, be sure they were working properly. And they would go up on the roof, and they would shoot some pigeons. And they shot a pigeon one day, and the pigeon fell in the parking lot on a customer that was going into the retail store.
There was a man came into the catalog department wanting to buy some clothes, and he was stark naked except for his shoes. He had on a pair of leather shoes.
One day this guy and his wife came in, and they were from down in Mississippi somewhere or another, and he was a big old boy. Gosh, he was big. And he was mad. They had bought this water heater, and it only lasted like 4 years. He said, I want all my money back. And I said, I can't do that, sir. And he said, if I go downstairs and get that water heater out of my truck and ram it up your rear end, what you do then? I said, I tell you what, we're going to get you 100% adjustment. And he was even laughing when he left because he knew I was a kid. I was 20 years old. Big old guy bluffed me, I guess.
I remember one instance where this couple ordered a puppy. They sold puppies, catalog did. And so it was right close to Christmas, and our department manager, Richard Ennis, he took the puppy to the people's homes so they would make sure they got it for Christmas.
We had shops in the area, we had restaurants here, we had a White Way drugstore on the corner if we wanted to go down and have a milkshake.
We just had that 30 minutes to go to lunch. But we went across the street to the harbor, and the harbor was a wonderful restaurant.
You had Dyer's Hamburgers right down the road. You know, used the same pot of grease for 100 years.
They had a nice furniture store down the street. They had a theater. Matter of fact, the theater that was down there, one of the first movies I ever went to see was The Sound of Music. Everything around here was lively. It was a lot of fun to be in the neighborhood.
We were still the number 10 in all the Sears operations in America. A complete store with a filling station and a farm store across the street. That filling station happened to be one of the largest pumpers of gasoline of all Sears in the nation. All the stores were vibrant, were alive.
There were always a lot of activities going on in the plant. A lot of the employees got together. We would have skits. We would have programs on July the 4th. We had contests. One of my favorite memories of working here at this company was the year we had our 50th anniversary. Everybody that worked here dressed in period costumes. We had a program that we had the dancing girls and choral group. We just had a lot of fun.
As time goes on, as more Memphians begin to use automobiles, they begin to move further east, away from not only downtown, but also crosstown, midtown.
They called all the managers and all the supervisors up to the 11th floor. Our general manager walked in, he read a letter to us that they were closing, that Sears was closing catalog. And to the people with families, or even if you weren't ready to retire, this was devastating news.
I knew a lot of people here, and a lot of them have come back to me since I walked in this building. And it's sad because some of them are gone. Not whole bunches of us left. Deep down, this was the best place that I'd ever worked.
The building's real sad to see it going down, but when I drive this area and I see all the buildings, the shops closed, the majority of them empty, or the buildings are gone or need to be torn down, it's pretty sad to see that because this was such a lively place back then.
We moved here just when the Sears building had closed for business. It really brought a lot of tears to the people because I knew some of the people who used to work here. It was just a big, empty place. I was thinking, well, I don't know if this church is going to have anything effective in this area since the Sears building is no longer there because it used to bring a lot of people.
Memphis này tôi nghĩ rằng bây giờ sau khi mà cái chợ Sears họ đã đóng cửa, trước kia cái chợ Sears đó hàng tuần đông người tới dữ lắm. Nó có một cái chỗ đậu xe rất là 3-4 tầng lầu, 3-4 tầng để mà đậu xe rất đông. Nhưng mà sau khi cái công ty của Sears họ bị dẹp đi, nó bỏ vắng mấy chục năm, bỏ vắng cái người chắc cũng 30 năm rồi đó.
Good gracious, I didn't really realize what I was getting into because it was quite a chore. It took me anywhere from 2 or 3 weeks to get familiar enough with the building to keep from actually getting lost because so much of it was in total darkness. So I had flashlights and I had my pistol and people told me I needed to be careful. I learned how to walk the building, and the only other thing that was kind of disturbing with making discoveries in the building was discovering people sleeping and camping out in here. The health department, the city fire department didn't want these guys in here, particularly in the winter months, trying to light fires to stay warm. So I had quite a task of trying to clear the building of residents, as I would call them. Some of them weren't so friendly. There were people that loved this property, loved this structure. I used to get calls, or people would stop me if they see me out in the yard cutting the grass, and they'd say, "Can you take me in there?" People would ask all the time, "I want to go in there and look around. I want to see that place. My grandfather worked there. You know, we used to shop there when I was in grade school."
And so we prayed for our neighborhood. That prayer also included, God, open up opportunities for this building to become viable for this community. Now, there was rumors of many projects that people wanted to do. Every time we thought something's going to happen, and it fell through. And we say, well, whatever happened, happens. But we still prayed for this neighborhood, for this community to change. A lot of buildings were empty, the businesses moved out. It was a very sore spot in the city of Memphis. And I didn't know that somebody had a vision that would work to bring this neighborhood back, commercially, economically.
My friend George and I had a punk band called Distemper. The band had actually already been in this neighborhood the year before. Distemper recorded at CROSSTOWN Recorders in 1986. I shot a film called The Sore Losers about juvenile delinquents from outer space that come to Memphis to kill hippies. We came back into Crosstown and we shot this cool moment of Jack Oblivion and Hugh Brooks walking under the Crosstown marquee. I would belong to the Jehovah's Witnesses now. I would be one if they had just saved the Crosstown sign. I came back in 2008 and I shot sort of a little dystopian epic called Cigarette Girl. You do see some shots of the Sears Building as the camera swoops up the side, down the middle of the interior architecture of the front of the building. Making films in Memphis has been an excellent form of preservation when you know maybe at the end of the day that maybe some buildings are not going to be preserved. You can't get people behind the history, the Memphisness of the whole thing, to try to preserve something and find out what's good about it so that more people will move here and the tax base will increase.
I want to make sure that Red gets here and it's all fresh, so he does it himself every morning.
My family came here from Vietnam in 1978. Dad worked for United States Catholic Charities. He was a social worker, helped bring immigrants, get them settled in.
Lúc tôi đến đây thì Việt Nam ở tại Memphis này chỉ có 92 người thôi. Hiện bây giờ cái số người Việt Nam còn ở tại Memphis này là khoảng 5.000 người. Vào năm 1980 thì gia đình tôi có lập một cái chợ Việt Nam đầu tiên ở tại đây.
After having been here for a few months, we realized how hard it was to get Asian food. My mother realized that Oklahoma City and Chicago had a bigger Asian community. She was always business-minded. A friend of my dad sold her a van for $700. Mom would drive there to bring Asian food back for our family and distribute it amongst the other families that came here. So Mother cleaned houses. One of the men that she cleaned houses, his name was Nathan Greenblatt. I will always remember that because he gave us our first start. He offered my mom space. My mother didn't speak any English. We had no resources, but she took it with $1,500 in our bank account and a van that she bought for $700. My family had the first Asian grocery store. Memphis, back in the early 80s, especially the heart of Midtown, it's always been very welcoming. It was very warm. Crosstown has always been my mother's life. It's been our home. This is where it all happened for me, for us, for our family. We want to bring people back into the Midtown area.
And so one day I saw some young men, they were walking around, looking over the building across the church. I went across and introduced myself. Are you trying to do something here? And Chris Minor called me and said, yes, we are here. We're trying to do a feasibility study for that building. And they rented the office as one-room office across the church, and we became friends.
I moved back to Memphis in 2008 to be a professor at the University of Memphis in art history. And so about a year after I'd been here, I began talking with the owner of the building, who purchased the building in 2007 as a philanthropic venture. He loved the Art Deco architecture, the history of the building. So basically the conversation started out with, wouldn't it be cool if? And it was purchased purely for with a civic vision. No developer in their right mind would purchase this building.
My name is Christopher Minor, and I am co-director and co-founder of CROSSTOWN Arts with Todd Richardson. And I guess Todd and I officially started the organization together in 2010. I've been a working video artist, a musician, and writer for about 20 years or so. I spent a year and a half in Memphis after studying photography in grad school, in part because I had this idea for a community-minded contemporary art center. But I basically had no idea how to get that started. It was just demoralizing to drive around the city and see all these incredible old buildings that were practically everywhere. I was driving home one day and I saw this massive, massive building that somehow I'd never seen before in Memphis. And it was bigger than any abandoned building that I had seen. It was just like this gigantic cruise ship right in the middle of the block. I pulled up in the parking lot and I had all my bad handmade drawings of this little nonprofit art photography center concept that I had been trying to get started. And I sat in the front seat of my car and I just started bawling. Anyway, after living in Memphis for a couple years, I ended up moving to New York and eventually teaching art at Hunter College and at Yale. And after about 6 years of sweating it out in New York and constantly being broke, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, Sparks, we decided that we could have a more productive art life living in the South. We moved back to Mississippi and I came up with this idea to start an artist residency program. I had been friends with Todd since college and I knew he was teaching art history in Memphis, so I called him and asked him if he knew anyone in Memphis who could give me any advice about operating this nonprofit that I'd started. This led to a conversation with some of his friends, some people who owned an old building in Memphis that they weren't sure what to do with. And when I told them about this artist residency program that I'd started in Mississippi, you know, everybody at the table was like, man, that's really a cool idea. That'd be amazing if Memphis had something like that. And I said, you have no idea. That was my plan all along, was to do something like this in Memphis. Sitting there at that table during that first conversation with Todd in Memphis, I realized that the building he was talking about, that the owners may be interested in doing some kind of community art space inside of, that was the Sears Building, which was the same building that I had sat in the parking lot of a decade earlier and cried like a baby.
We put together a development team and we started off with a year-long feasibility study that really looked at, can anything happen with this building? And if so, what? At the core of that was the arts, music, visual arts, performing arts, multidisciplinary. And so when we got started, yes, we got together a development team in a room to think about the building, but we also started CROSSTOWN Arts, a nonprofit that was to facilitate the conversation, but at the same time begin to have events in the building, in the neighborhood, to bring people back to Crosstown. Most people had kind of forgotten that it existed since Sears left, and the neighborhood had gotten disinvested and kind of abandoned. And so I always say using building both as a verb and a noun. It was an initial effort about renovating a building, but it was also about building community.
CROSSTOWN Arts provides a critical voice that has been in the decline, actually, in the arts field, which is a venue that supports artists without the encumberment of trying to produce work for commerce. It creates a space where the artist can speak truly and without any inhibition to him or herself and to the audience. Completely unadulterated, completely uncensored, completely free. Those sorts of spaces are vanishing.
This gets into how significant the role of the building owner was. The entire Crosstown project would not have happened if he had not been so incredibly progressive and open-minded, if he didn't value the potential impact of the idea on the city and how amazing it would be for Memphis, more than he valued, conventional experience of managing a project like this. Anyone who had real experience doing this would have just said it's a completely ridiculous idea. The building's too big, and everyone involved that had anything to do with the project on any level, they all share a little of that Memphis style of hardcore believing in something, regardless of how crazy it might seem on the surface.
I'm an artist myself. I've been working with the community in different ways for a lot of years. One of the things that happen when we do these projects together is that we're literally inviting people in the neighborhood to the table, to sit down with us, to do a project with us, to get to know us, and to get to know each other.
We started having events inside the building, which was totally abandoned, for the past 20 years. And it was a total pain in the ass. We had to file permits with the code office and have the fire department inspect the building every single time we set up for an event over there. We had to bring in our own electricity and bathrooms and security and lights, and it was annoying, but the point was that we wanted to get as many people as possible into the building to sort of share in the vision and the hope that something could happen in there. So we had music concerts in the building, and we had some fancy ticketed dinners, photography events where we invited local Memphis photographers, to explore the building and to make photographs. And we knew early on that probably the most important driving force behind the whole project was going to be the fact that so many Memphians just loved this building. The Memphis event, that was early in the project before we even had financing together. You have this event and thousands of people came out and spent the day just to sort of see what it would feel like if things like that could happen in a place like this, in the future. And it was really, really beautiful. My point is that it was a collective effort. Even back then, in the first year and for the past 7 years, maybe the best way for me to say it is that the whole thing is bigger than one person. It's bigger than one idea. All of that love and support and that hard work and that innovative thinking, it all leads to the creation of a place where Memphians will have an opportunity to share their ideas and their creativity, whatever their creative endeavor may be. Everyone just comes together in a place where all of that can happen in a new way. And the hope is that it spreads out from there, that it doesn't just stay inside the building. That kind of inspiration and inspired life could sort of spread out to the whole city.
One of the features this building's going to have is 3 atriums cut from the roof all the way down to the ground floor, covered with massive skylights. These atriums are varying sizes from about 33 foot square to the one that we're actually standing in right now. It's going to be right at 52 foot by 92 foot. Right behind us here, all the way down to the second floor, we're tearing out a 20-foot by 10-foot hole. This allows the demo company to take the trash accumulated while they're demoing per floor and push it down. It'll all land on the second floor, but it will land on a piece of concrete that's going to go away in the atrium, so we don't have to worry about damage.
The last 7 years can really be divided into 4 chapters. You've got the concept period, where we are completely flying under the radar for a year, where we have people in a room talking about what could be. At the end of the first year, we decided that yes, it's possible. We gave ourselves about a 5% chance. But nevertheless, in terms of the price per square foot to redevelop this building, it's no different than a structure in downtown Memphis that was also built in the 1920s, redone. It's less about the cost per square foot and the fact that there's so many damn square feet. And then what do you do with the scale of it? But by the end of the first year, we had enough data to tell us we need to keep going. There were no roadblocks, well, besides the obvious.
In the initial introduction to the building, I think the emotion that sparked, the moment that Frank, he unlocked the door and you walk in, just a sensation of awe at the magnitude and scale, scope of this building. And the beautiful bones, concrete columns, the mass masonry. This is not something that would ever be built today. This is a unique snapshot in time that will never exist again.
Now, the general development community said, you need to tear it down. It's too big a project to tackle. You just need to take it down and clear the land and come up with a development. And we decided then that since we couldn't get any developers really interested in doing the project, that we just needed to do it ourselves.
In 2007, I moved back to Memphis after graduating from business school. And at that time, one of my best friends in Memphis told me that I needed to meet one of his best friends, a guy by the name of Todd Richardson, who just moved to Memphis to be an art professor at the University of Memphis. And so Todd and I got together and kicked off a great relationship. There was a time in 2010 in which our mutual friend came to Memphis, and at this point, Todd was in the middle of his feasibility study for the project, looking to find someone who had some real estate development and deal experience. And our buddies told Todd, have you ever talked to McLean about this? It really started out as a friend introducing a friend to another friend, and a relationship ensued.
The next phase was really the recruitment phase. By the end of the first year, we didn't have the words to apply vertical urban village. The only thing that we could say is beyond mixed use. And so it was less about simply retail and office and residential coexisting like a traditional mixed-use approach, but it was more about recruiting tenants who actually wanted to be next to each other. Instead of just co-locating, they all believed they would be better because they're next to the other.
You look back at Crosstown in its infancy and the people that were involved, the economy, the neighborhood, and you think there's no way that they're going to pull this off. This is 1.5 million square feet in a colossal empty building in a very depressed area of the city. And I remember talking to folks at the time in other cities in the US saying, this is what I'm doing, and they thought I was crazy. So there was a large amount of disbelief in this project for sure.
My name is Mallory Bailey. I work with All Work Project Management, and we were brought onto the project to really assist the general contractor and the Crosstown development team with construction support. I was a project engineer on site. I was the third person actually out here on the field. So one of the things that we've done is facilitate a job fair. We've reached out to the community, and we reached out to contractors who are on site and also tenants who are moving in. And we asked them, who do you have a need for? Then we go back out and reach out to the community, giving them the opportunity to understand what's being made available and how they can be a part of it.
The second and third year were really about telling the story of what could be. It was always about better together. Because this building is so iconic in the city of Memphis, has such an amazing history, and is so beloved, people were willing to listen. We had probably over the course of that couple of years, maybe 600 meetings. We've got 32 leases. So not a very good batting average, but we've got some great folks who signed on. And even when they signed on, they were like, we don't think this is gonna happen, but if it does, this sounds amazing and we wanna be a part of it.
We did a back of the envelope and realized this can happen if these things work out, and there was a list of about 25 of them, then the project will happen. If any one of those things didn't work out, then the project won't happen, but there was a pathway forward.
The first groups were, of course, Crosstown Arts, the high school, and Memphis Teacher Residency. So we had the arts and education component, but it was really in the spring of 2012 when we realized that Church Health could do everything they wanted to do in the building.
The hard down is still in there, ain't it? It's still in there.
So the Church Health Center, which is now Church Health, began September 1st, 1987. We began in a little small house on the corner of Peabody and Bellevue. And our niche then was the same as it is now, to provide health care for people who work in low-wage jobs who don't have health insurance, and to find a way to engage the community of faith around issues of body and spirit.
Well, I came to him in 1992. My boss brought me down. He brought me down here because I didn't have no insurance at the time, and he opened a clinic up for people that didn't have no insurance. And so that's why I started coming to him, and we've been friends ever since. This place has been a blessing for so many people because so many people don't have insurance. Now, this place is to help folks that can't help themselves, and thank God for that. And this is a place you come to when you get loved, cared about, treatments and everything. What else could you ask for?
And so when that happened, that was really a turning point, because then with the organizations that we had, and Scott Morris as also a third-party advocate for the project. If we started in 2009, it was August of 2012 that we first officially announced to the public what we were up to.
And the project would have only been an idea that never happened if it was not for the founding partners at Crosstown Concourse, which is what we call the organizations and businesses that were first willing to sign letters of intent and be part of the project when the project was just an idea. They are the reason why the idea ever became a reality. It wasn't until David Montague and Memphis Teacher Residency were interested and eventually took a huge risk and became the first organization that believed in the idea. Then Church Health, Scott Morris, Ann Langston, Marvin Stockwell, all those guys, they had 14 different locations for their organization around the city and were willing to move all of it into over 100,000 square feet in the building. These organizations, the founding partners, they were visionary, and they had to be willing to think outside the norms and conventions about how projects like this happen. And Gary Shorb and the people at Methodist, Le Bonheur Healthcare, willing to relocate their entire business office. Everyone at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and their vision to move ALSAC, the fundraising arm of the Department of St. Jude, into the building. Crosstown High and their willingness to start a project-based learning charter school inside the building and include young people in the concourse community. Christian Brothers University offering an MBA in healthcare administration. These organizations and the people who run them and the people who work there, without all of them, this whole thing is just a bunch of art projects and people banging on drums and dancing in the parking lot of a broken down old building.
We're standing on the catwalk above the residential atrium. One of the major design challenges for this building, given its immensity, given its depth, given its height, 10 stories at most places, is how to get natural light into the center of the building. People thrive in an environment with natural light. One of the primary design drivers becomes how you solve that challenge. How do you make it comfortable for people in a place people want to be? You're standing here in an atrium where we have cut out roughly 54 million pounds of concrete in order to create that natural light environment. You'll see throughout the building that there are a number of different atria, 8 in fact. Each one has a different character in order to support and promote the environment around it. There was also a very intentional design effort to create the depth of these trusses so that we get artistic shadow patterns so that we use them to break up the sunlight coming into the building.
So as the co-leader of the project, Todd Richardson and I took on many different roles and were able to leverage our different expertises and means and methods that we needed to make the project work. And one of those that I was able to leverage through my past experience was thinking about real estate and development really through the lens of financing. The question was, are there enough sources, are there enough investors and banks that are willing to put their money into a project like this to actually make then the project happen? So we started off with the original investment, which was the building. So what we had to begin amounted to about 1/8 of what we thought we needed. And then we went out and started to pursue other sources.
I'll be probably too honest. When I was first approached with this opportunity, I was like, it's a great deal. It's good for the city. This is going to be a humongous task. I mean, when you look at over 35 different pieces of financing going into this deal, this is not your average deal, and the average bank could not just handle this. It is the largest private development in the city of Memphis with over $200 million in this project. I mean, you look at the FedEx Forum cost, probably slightly below $300 million. And to say you got $200 million going in this project with very limited government dollars outside the new markets tax credits or where the government's not floating bonds to pay for it, and given the neighborhood, that is a significant risk. But those are risks that you take when you believe in your community and you believe in the city of Memphis and you believe in your partners. And being a native Memphian, I didn't want to be the one who stood in the way of this project getting done. And that's why I jumped on board real early. And with one meeting, I said, we're going to see what we can do.
Item number 54. Resolution to designate the facility formerly known as Sears Crosstown as a blighted facility pursuant to TCA 132209 to establish the Crosstown redevelopment project to allocate and appropriate an amount not to exceed $15 million to the project for public infrastructure and other building improvements, and to authorize the mayor to execute the necessary procedures to establish the project.
Thank you, council members. Please cast your votes on this item as amended.
To some extent, tomorrow is like every other day, which is a lot of work, a lot of people. We're focused and committed to seeing the Sears Crosstown revitalized.
The story in the central atrium is really fundamental building block for the project. This was conceived as an arts-based community, and the intention is to create a space that provides maximum flexibility and opportunity for artists and the public as a whole to reconceive, to make these spaces their own, to create them as whatever they want them to be.
In 2014, I photographed the building before it was touched, before any demolition started, before they had removed anything from the building to save or repurpose. Then every time I had a chance to come in, it was like something had changed. You know, they would say, something new's happening. We're putting in these stairs. We're knocking holes in the ceiling. So Crosstown would give me a call. I personally document almost everything in my life that happens. When I came through here, of course it was interesting because it was an abandoned building that hadn't been touched. It had a lot of history. It had a lot of interesting things in it. But as it was cleaned up and demoed and as it changed, man, knocking holes in it immediately made it amazing just to look at. It's a challenge too because the place is massive. So every time I do come in, I may not go to the same spots I went to before, but I know there's somewhere I haven't seen. I know there's somewhere that has been overlooked. And the workers and the people who are working on the place changed from steel workers to electrical workers. So I opened up a photo studio across the street from the CROSSTOWN building about 3.5 years ago, and it's called America. And I used it as a studio, but since then we are constantly using it as an event space, a project space, a collaborative space, fundraiser space for all kinds of events and people, and that's worked out amazing, and that's made my relationship, I think, with CROSSTOWN grow and become more of a collaboration. It does feel like a family in a weird way. I've gotten to know everyone that's worked over here and the people that are in and out of the building, and it's definitely helped me become more of a member of this community in the CROSSTOWN area.
We decided that one component of our commitment to the neighborhood development concept was that the project needed to exist beyond just the renovation of the building itself. We realized that we needed to start pilot programs in the neighborhood of these art and music programs that would comprise CROSSTOWN Arts' actual future contemporary space in the building. And we rented a couple of bays in the boarded up abandoned storefronts across the street from the building, and we started the pilot versions of our gallery and our community exhibition and performance space.
One of the things that CROSSTOWN Arts does is to host group shows, especially shows that are around a theme, help people to join a community that they might not otherwise know about or understand that they are welcome, and then you get to know other people that are doing this.
I do have to say that our CROSSTOWN Arts staff is incredible. They deserve an unimaginable amount of credit for any and every good thing that happens around here for the past 7 years, because every single person on our staff embodies the mission and the vision of the organization in some way that I would have never even known was possible. We have a community exhibition and performance space at 430 North Cleveland, just across the street from the Concourse building, which is a venue for Memphis-based musicians and artists, performers of any kind to host their own performances and art shows. On a regular basis, you just walk by the space and you're like, what in the world is this crazy, incredible show that's happening here tonight?
CROSSTOWN Art takes you as you are and enables you to expand and to grow your talent while you're there. That causes a lot of opportunities to come forward. And I tell any artist, don't give up on your dream. Just because you can't get into a private gallery or a museum doesn't mean that the opportunity is dead. It's just that you have to start small in order to grow. And once you start growing, then you have the opportunity to get into those other galleries and museums. But CROSSTOWN Art is the place to start.
CROSSTOWN Arts is very eager to partner with other organizations. It's an easy partnership. It's an eager partnership where CROSSTOWN Arts has opened its doors and has been a very inviting and welcoming space. And for an organization like CROSSTOWN Arts to open its doors is a breath of fresh air. It's one that rekindles the spirit of the potential for the American dream, where all people can find a place to find their own face, to listen to their own voices, to listen to the voices of their children.
And I've seen all kind of work here. I've seen people from all different backgrounds, and I've seen them be able to properly express that and to feel pride while expressing that. Nobody's gonna tell you that you can't talk about your lifestyle, talk about what you choose to do, and talk about what you believe in. If you're liberal, conservative, gay, straight, black, white, whatever, you can express that. And I think that's something that needs to continue happening. I've noticed with CROSSTOWN, the door is open.
I guess the main point is that we, CROSSTOWN Arts, are not the ones who are having all the amazing ideas for these projects. It's actually because Memphis is so unbelievably full of so many cool people and so many great ideas and projects and organizations and incredible work that they're already doing. Memphis just needs more spaces and more venues and more opportunities for Memphians to show all the badass stuff that they're already doing.
Story Booth is the after-school, project-based arts program of Crosstown Arts, built out as a hidden booth in the Cleveland Street Flea Market, where we give kids a physical and imaginative space that is not home, that is not school, that they can make creative work for its own sake. So we pair them up with creative-minded Memphians and professional teaching artists to see a creative process through from start to finish in many different media, and they get a tangible takeaway from that experience and also an audience celebration of their work.
That's where book projects come in, that's where film projects come in, that's where theater, where painting, visual art, and providing that artistic component for kids to figure out what they're good at, to figure out what they don't like or what they do like, and what they can create individually and together. The space is theirs to be creative in whatever discipline of art they're engaging in at that moment. And the kids love getting to come and spend time with kids who go to school on the other side of North Cleveland or who go to school on the other side of North Parkway, and they get to come to one place and just kind of have that fresh air of other kids from different schools. Over the past 2 years, I've gotten to do this workshop with kids from Humes. That's where it began, it's where it started, with maybe 15, 16 kids. And now we're involved at Manassas and Trezevant and Northwest Prep and Central, and over 50 kids get to come after school to participate in theater. And one of the most invaluable things to come out of that for me is not only do we get to bring over a group of kids who come through that many people in the community say, oh, they don't stick to one thing, or they show up for 2 weeks and they don't come back, or it's a super transient population. But these kids are becoming the next generation, I believe, of programming at Crosstown Arts.
For me, and for a lot of other these guys, it's not just a job, it's just not a project. It's something that we will drive by for years, and where all these people who have worked here are excited and saying they worked here when it was Sears, we'll get to say we transformed it into this.
My job is to work the elevator, to take their freight, to make sure they be able to do their jobs too. This is an up and down job. The difference between 2 years ago and now we have people in the building. Before we was moving out debris, dust, animals, there was no lights, no air conditioning. So it's a better feel now. You get people moving in, you get air in the building, place is a lot cleaner. There's a vibe going through this building that brings this building back to life. Yeah, I'm originally from Memphis. I was born in the Whitehaven area. Left school early, graduated from Fairleigh High School, and went to the Army, did 14 years of service. And I came back, when I was a kid, I used to come to this building. My dad used to bring me to Western Auto here. So when I came back from the service, this building was shut down. Kind of got lost for a while. But I would always drive by like, what's they gonna do with that building? And here I am working in this building. Just being with these guys behind the scene that you really don't see that does all this incredible work. Carpet guys, the electricians. It's a group effort, and we're trying to get this building up where it needs to be. This is one of the biggest projects I ever been on. I see the character they leaving in the building. It's a movement going on. Instead of tearing down some of your valuable properties, the business can be saved. I think you can bring it back and keep character in Memphis. I'm gonna run it for construction player of the year. I said player of the year. That works.
You see the guys returning to the building after their lunch break. The success of this project, there's lots of us who claim a small role in making this happen, but the guys you're seeing wearing the hard hats walking into the building, they each make millions of decisions every day about how exactly the pieces come together, the quality, the workmanship, the craftsmanship that's necessary for this dream to become reality.
A day before we closed in 2014 were moments where I went from 95% sure it was going to happen to 35% sure it was going to happen. The peaks and the valleys were mixed in terms of timing. It's not like we had this steady crescendo from it's never going to happen to it's going to happen. It was yes, 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 oh crap, yes, 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 oh crap, yes, 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 yes.
We had an amazing contractor who bid the project in May of 2014. And we had contracts that lasted through the calendar year. And so on January 1st, 2015, the contractors were able to rebid their price, and construction prices had increased, and our contractor was able to ensure that our current subcontractors were holding their price through the year of 2014. In addition to that, we had some federal money that if it was not spent in the year of 2014, that would have to be diverted to a different project, and that was about a $15 million piece of capital for us. And so towards the end of 2014, every week we had a massive call of attorneys. We had about 55 individuals on these calls, and it was all to go through attorney documents to make sure that every T was crossed and I was dotted. And invariably, there was an attorney that had an issue with a document or with how something was worded, and it kept continuing to delay the closing. We thought we'd close in September. September didn't happen. We thought October. October didn't happen. In addition to that, we had some other federal sources that were being challenged to be committed to the project, and so we had to really call on a lot of individuals to do favors for us. On Christmas Eve of 2014, we had another issue, and on December 23rd, I would have said we had a 95% chance of closing financing, and on December 26th, I would have said we had about a 40% chance. The wonderful thing about this project is it didn't rely on any one individual. There was a massive group of individuals that helped move this project forward. We were able to rely on a lot of those different individuals through the course of our financing to think creatively and to come up with wonderful solutions to continue to allow us to move forward. On December 29th of 2014, we were able to close financing. One of the most memorable moments in my life was when all 32 sources of financing, the attorneys for each of those different groups, sent out an email that said, "We are ready to close." And it all happened within about 45 seconds.
I think on some level, what we're all craving maybe is like a greater sense of connectedness to each other. The connection that spans historic divides, race and class and economic divisions. The idea of renaming the place CROSSTOWN Concourse was an effort to embody that hope that this place could be where a new kind of connectedness could happen.
This is not just a building limited to the physical, the steel, the stone, and the tangible. This is 1 million square feet of opportunity, built on history and powered by renewal. It's a place to collaborate because our lives are lived better when we discover together. We believe in the search for intersections, designing paths of unexpected connections that lead to experiences filled with creative force. This is not just a building. This is a beautiful passage of people who together are CROSSTOWN CONCOURSE. Concourse! Crosstown Concourse! Crosstown Concourse! Part of the benefit of having an art historian as co-leader of this project is that I didn't know what I didn't know, right? I always believed it was possible.
And the reason why we're here is because of people who all had a touch in moving it forward. That was the city of Memphis. That was the general contractor. That was the project owners. That was the community. That was you who believed in this project. As a young developer, understanding the power of inclusion and diversity and how that really impacts a product and the results of something being great, that's instrumental.
The fascinating thing about Memphis is we never fully give up on those neighborhoods. On the surface, it appears that we do, but we still have a pull to Crosstown or Orange Mound. There's an emotional tie to it. So I think a lot of Memphians emotionally never leave.
Now comes the true test, the opening of the doors. To apply the theory of the mixing of the arts and all of these other entities, and to see how far and what fruit can be born from this incubation. To have an open heart in regards to its place in the community, that it's not one that it's above the community, but it's one that it's in the community and of the community, and constantly listening to the desires of an open, dynamic Memphis.
Hey Todd, this is LaVon Duke. I was just giving you a heads up. Right now I've got 110 people that want to come to this luncheon and tour, and I probably have a few more, so I just want to give you a heads up on that. Oh, you can call me back if you want to when you've got time. I'll be gone most of the day tomorrow if you want to send me an email. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank y'all for being here. We're really excited to be able to open this up to you. The building is just now in a spot where we can have everyone here. I hope everybody has on your calendars August the 19th. Saturday, August the 19th is the opening celebration of Crosstown Concourse, formerly Sears Crosstown.
They were updating me periodically, and they say there are some things we're working on, and hopefully we're going to present them to our group and see what they will think of. And so when finally they say that there's a viable group that is going to pick up this building and willing to invest in it, I shouted hallelujah, okay? That long last, something's going to take place, and maybe it's going to be the best thing that will ever happen for this neighborhood.
For me, the spark happens when I begin to think about all of the things that people are going to think about doing with this building that we could have never thought about doing, that are much better than anything we could have thought about. And it's already happened. It's already happening on a daily basis right now, and it's staggering. No person can get credit for this project. You take one person away from the development team, it doesn't happen. You take any of our founding partners away, it doesn't happen. And continually, that idea is proven on a daily basis when people approach us with ideas that we've never had before, and they're much better than anything we could have come up with. And for me, that is what will measure success in the future.
And I'll never forget, we were riding on the bus, we were bringing kids back to school, bringing them back home, and one of the younger ones comes up and he sits next to me and he's looking at the building and he says, "Miss Jazzy, are we moving in that building?" And I said, "Yeah, in a couple of months we're gonna move in that building." And he said, "Miss Jazzy, does that building kind of, sort of belong to us?" And I looked over and I could see that sign, yours/ours, down the side of the building. And truthfully, I was able to answer, yeah, it belongs to us.